Hello and welcome to my final SplashKit video. So what we're going to do now is show you how to do some collisions with sprites and also to destroy them when you're no longer using them. Okay, to organize this, I'm just going to make a new function called check for collisions. And in it, I'm going to actually make another list of sprites. I'm going to call it old cheese. And I'm actually going to use this to keep account of the cheese that I'm going to want to remove because the mouse has collided with it or eaten it, depending on your perspective. So I'll just make that a new list of sprites. And for each sprite in cheese, so this is just going to go through and check against each sprite in our list of cheese. Now this is great here. We can do a SplashKit.Sprite collision method, which we can call on two sprites. So we can just call that on the sprite in our list and on our mouse sprite. And simple as that, it will tell us if there's been a collision between the two. Note that by default it's a bitmap collision, but you can actually change the type of collision if you want using SplashKit methods. You can check that out on the SplashKit website if you're interested in doing that. But this is perfect for me, so we'll leave it at that. Alright, so if there's actually been a collision, we just want to add the sprite that we were checking against to our old cheese list. And then for each sprite in old in old cheese, we want to remove it from our list of cheese. So it's cheese.remove a sprite. But also, the sprite still exists. If we ask it to draw all sprites and we just take it out of the list, it's still going to turn up. So we actually need to destroy it or free it, depending on whether you want to use a slightly nicer way of saying it. So we actually need to use SplashKit.freeSprite, and then we just give it sprite. So now it's actually destroying that sprite effectively, and none of the functions or update all sprite or draw all sprites will operate on that sprite anymore. It's gone. So now I want to make another list of sprites called reverse cheese. This is going to keep count of any cheese that I want to reverse the trajectory of, or the velocity of the vector of, because they've collided with each other. So I'm also going to need a vector 2D, which I'm just going to call IVEC, inverted vector. And it's going to be a new vector 2D. I'm just going to use that for when I reverse vectors. And then for each sprite in cheese again, I'm going to go through and I'm going to check it against its own list. So for each sprite 2 in cheese. So every item in the cheese list is going to compare itself against every other item in the cheese list. So we use our nice sprite collision method again to check if our sprite has collided with sprite 2. So this way every cheese in the list is checking against itself, or every other cheese in the list, or all of the cheeses in all of the lists should check if it's collided. And if it does, we need to check other things, because we don't want the sprite to be looking at itself again and counting that as a collision. Also, we don't want, if a cheese the first time through compares to another cheese and works out it's collided, when the reverse pairing happens the second time around, I'll fix that up, we don't want that to make it reverse itself twice and end up back the way it started, if that makes sense. So we only want to count it the first time it checks, and we don't want to count it at all if it's just found itself. So if those things both aren't true, we will just add that sprite to the reverse cheese list. And then when we've gone through and found all our cheese to reverse, then we can do what's necessary to reverse them. So for each sprite in reverse cheese, we're going to set our inverse vector to, and we can just use the SplashKit vector invert function. And the vector we're going to invert is the vector of the sprite. So we can use our SplashKit Sprite velocity, and that grabs the velocity vector of that sprite. And then we can simply use our sprite set velocity to set the velocity of that sprite back to that I vector we just created. And we're just also going to set the rotation just to show you how easy it is to grab the rotation, because I can just say sprite rotation in SplashKit with the sprite and then add 3, and I could just grab the existing rotation, add 3, and then it'll set it to a new rotation, just to show you how easy that is to like modify all of those things with very simple functions. So now we need to actually check for collisions back in our update procedure or process function. And if we run that, let's see what happens. Oh, there's a little slow collision down there. Oh, we have a mouse who can pick up some cheese. I'm just trying to keep it out of the way at the moment because we want to see if we can get more of that cheese colliding. There we go. It's a little bit more satisfying. So those are quite a few things that you can do with sprites. As I said, there's more. You can check out the website. You can add animations, but as you can see, very easy to grab information, set information, draw all your sprites, update all your sprites, handle them all. A lot of that hard, heavy lifting is done for you. Hope you've enjoyed my little walkthrough and you got some useful information out of it. Thanks, guys.